nation of Israel. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Right, Yahweh is who the world ignorantly calls God, and Yahweh Shai is the name of his only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. This class is going to be a short class, probably categorized as fast food in the fast food playlist. All right, it's entitled How to Deal with Loss and Heartbreak. Right, how to deal with loss and heartbreak. That's a real thing in the nation of Israel. Right, everybody has experienced that in some capacity. All right, so I'm gonna start out in the book of Sirach, chapter 38 and verse 16. All right, so it says, my son, if my son, let tears fall down over the dead. Right, so you might not necessarily be heartbroken over someone actually dying. You may actually be heartbroken over somebody passing, right? All right, sometimes you lose a friend or a relationship come to an end, and it can almost feel like that person died, right? Y'all don't talk no more. Y'all don't hear from each other no more. You don't know how that person is doing. It's almost as like they were dead to you at that point, right? So the Bible says when that happens, it's good to let your tears fall down. It's all right to cry, all right? Sometimes the best way to start to get over something is to let your tears fall down. It says, and begin to lament as if thou hast suffered great harm thyself. It says, and then cover his body according to the custom and neglect not his burial. Right? So if you lose a loved one to death, right, go ahead and bury that person, mourn that person, all right, and then you got to get over it, right? It says, verse 17, weep bitterly, all right, weep bitterly and make great moan and use lamentation as he is worthy, and that a day or two lest thou be evil spoken of, and then comfort thyself for thy heaviness, right? So go ahead and mourn that loss, right? Whether it's a loss of a person, they lost their life, all right, or it's a loss of a person, you know, they lost they lost their loved ones, you know, you might have lost a relationship. The Bible says go ahead and mourn that person. Go ahead and mourn it. It says, and then comfort thyself for thy heaviness. Then you got to start to comfort yourself. What does that mean? You got to go ahead and get in the mindset to where you can move on. You got to move on, right? It's important after you mourn, whatever loss it is, whatever heartbreak it is, you got to start to move on. It says, for of heaviness cometh death, right? You want to move on because you don't want you being sad to affect your physical body. It could literally bring death to you. It could literally start to affect the way that you look. It could literally affect your mind, right? And your mind to start to feed on itself. It says, and the heaviness of the heart breaketh strength, right? You get into that rut where you don't want to do anything. You get into that mindset to where you can't function, right? Everything seems like it's hard to do. You don't want to stay in that mindset. You got to move on, right? It says, in affliction also sorrow remaineth. Meaning what? You're going to remember, even if you move on, you're going to remember the pain that you felt from that experience, right? You're going to remember it may be some trauma associated with that experience, right? It says, in affliction also remaineth, sorrow remaineth. And the life of the poor is the curse of the heart, right? Because a lot of our people, blacks, Hispanics, and Native American, the Israelites live a hard life, right? A lot of us live poor lives, right? And it says that's the curse of the heart. That's something that's hard to deal with, right? It's hard to get over that, man. It says, take no heaviness to heart. Drive it away and remember the last end. So it says, take no heaviness to heart. Drive it away. Move on. Get yourself over that and overcome whatever sadness you got. I got Proverbs 15 and 13, right? Let's go there. Let's go to Proverbs 15 and 13. So any loss that you're dealing with, you want to move on from that loss, right? It says, a merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance, right? When you happy, you're going to look happy. You're going to be smiling. It says, But by sorrow of the heart, the spirit is broken, right? And you don't want to let yourself remain broken, right? You don't want to fall into depression, right? You don't want to fall into these things because they can afflict you so much, and you can afflict yourself so much to where it can literally bring death to yourself. You understand? Right? It's a time. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 3. Ecclesiastes 3. It's a time and a place to do all those things, right? Some things aren't meant to last forever, right? Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 1. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the sun. Everything has a season and a time and a purpose, right? It says a time to be born, a time to what? Die. It says a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, right? Some things ain't meant to last forever. Some things are meant to last for a season. It says a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. Sometimes you got to start over. It's all right to start over, right? It's all right to start from scratch. It's all right to knock the whole thing down and just completely start to rebuild. It says a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. And sometimes it's all right to be by yourself, right? And other times it's good to be around people. More than often you want to be around people if you're going through something, right? It says a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. What profit have he that worketh in the wherein he laboreth, right? It says, I have seen the travail which God have given to the sons of men to be exercised in it. And heartbreak and loss is sometimes a part of that travail that we get exercised in, that we got to go through, right? So you have to remember the last end. You have to remember the things that are most important when you losing or experiencing a loss, right? It's important that you do that, right? Let's go to Revelation chapter 3 and verse 11. It says, behold, I come quickly, hold fast to that which you have, right? That which you have is the Bible. That which you have is these laws, statutes, and commandments, the promises in the Bible, right? It says what? That no man take thy crown. The Lord literally has a crown of rulership waiting for you if you can overcome, right? He says, he that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God. And that's how you're going to chiefly overcome. That's how you're going to chiefly move on, by understanding what we got laid up for us next. That is something way better than this, right? The loss or the heartbreak that you might be experiencing in this life, man, it's just a small part of it. We got something much greater laid up for us, man. He said, he that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out, meaning there ain't gonna be no more captivity after this. And I will write upon him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, the kingdom. You understand? So whatever heartbreak, whatever loss you dealing with, understand that it's something better than that. That's what's going to help you to move forward. If you pondering and you keep your mind fixed on whatever it is that you got going on right now, hey, you kill yourself, man. You kill yourself. It say, which cometh down out of heaven, them from my God, and I will write upon him my new name. Right? Let's jump over here to chapter 2 and verse 10. Right? It say, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. You're going to suffer heartbreak. You're going to suffer some loss. You understand? But the Lord say, don't fear those things. Don't harp on them. Don't let it linger. Don't let it fester. Right? It says, behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, right? And you may be in the prison of your emotions right now, right? This literally gonna happen, but you may be in the prison of your emotions, the prison of your sadness, right? You gotta break up out of that. That's to try you. It says, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee what? A crown of life, right? So we want that crown, man. We want that crown, right? Let's go to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 10. All right, y'all gotta bear with me. My Bible been through it, boy. Right? Hebrews 10, and I'm gonna start at verse 23, right? It says, let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering. So that's how you gonna move on. Holding fast to your profession. Keeping abounding in keep yourself abounding in the work of the Lord. It says, for he is faithful that promised, right? He's faithful to keep all the promises that he made to us. It says, and let us consider one another to provoke unto love and unto good works, right? Provoke unto love and the good works. You need your brothers and your sisters a lot of times when you're dealing with a loss, when you're dealing with heartbreak. You may need that brother or that sister to lean on, that you could talk to, that they could build you back up with the precepts. So don't try to do it alone, right? Don't try to do it alone, right? Let's go real quick to the book of Philippians, chapter 3, and verse number 14. Right? It says, what? I press towards the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Hamashiach Yahushua. So we want to press towards that mark. Don't stay stuck in that rut of sadness and depression and being low, right? Don't stay in that spot, right? But rather press towards the mark for the prize. The prize is the kingdom. The prize is to see these wicked kingdoms fall, right? And the Lord willing for us to make it into the new kingdom. That's the prize. We want to press towards that. We don't want to stay stuck in that sadness, right? Because like we read in the scriptures, it'll bring death, right? So in short, keep yourself abounding in the work of the Lord, right? Don't let nothing stop you from doing what the Lord will have you to do, which is to keep his commandments and to have the faith in his only begotten son, Yahushua HaMashiach. All right, it's Brother Nashan, New Wine Congregation of Israel, signing off.